Yeah, so like I was dating someone who was Muslim, and we had like a very serious relationship. And I was like, I can't. Dual religion households could work, but I want to pray with my spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
just when I have an issue, I want to be like, hey,
Yeah.
I have this issue. And I want us to have a collective understanding of how we should go about resolving that, right? People think that I'm also a part of like a lot of interfaith dialogue questions, and a lot of like the misconception, at least on my end, from Christians and interfaith people in general, like people who are like more aligned with that kind of worldview, is that like we all believe the same things. We all basically believe the same things. It's just like, you know, a little bit more salt, a little bit more pepper. No, we fundamentally believe different things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If I were a Muslim, I would be a different person.
Of course. Yeah.
So like, and there would be good things about that, and there would be other things about that too. Just in the way that being a Christian makes me have different things that are good and my understanding, my conception of good is different.
Yeah, of course. So there is a fundamental disagreement, and
yes,
there are two different religions.
Yes,
for sure.
there are two different religions. That being said, I do believe, you know, what Muhammad Ali has said was like, you know, like all the world religions are different streams and they all have different amounts of truth in them. I personally believe Christianity is the closest to, or has the most truth in it. But I've also found different truth, and for my experience with Islam, so basically what I started doing was I changed small things about my lifestyle first. So I stopped eating pork. Then I changed...
Which, of course, some Christians do.
Right, yeah,
right?
Exactly.
From the Old Testament.
Exactly. So I stopped eating pork. Then I started observing Ramadan.
Sure. Christians don't do that.
Yeah.
For the most part, anyway. I mean, some do, I'm sure, but for the most part, that's not done.
Most don't. So I fasted for the month of Ramadan, and I prayed 5 times a day. I prayed still like through Jesus, but I established the practice of prayer 5 times a day.
Right.
Which was like amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay.
So you just started praying more, right? I mean, that's not a big deal.
Well, I started praying more in a Muslim fashion.
Right. But to Jesus, to and through Jesus.
Yes,
so,
yes. So I was like, you know.
Yeah.
But I started reading the Quran.
Right.
I started reading the Quran to see for myself what was in it. And you hear stories about Jesus, right? And some of them are the same and some of them are different. And you're like, wow. And then like you like read it, like you read some, well, my Arabic is like kind of okay. But
it's
like
better than mine, I'm sure.
But like there's this like beautiful quote in the Quran, which is like Jesus, like when they're talking about who he is, and they're like Jesus al-ruh minhum, which is like the breath from God, like the spirit from God. And I was like, and like that's the only person in the Quran that's ever described in that kind of language, right? The only person who is perfectly sinless, the only person. So they like believe very similar things about Jesus. They just have a very specific problem with the terminology "Son of God." That doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I remember praying and breaking up with my boyfriend, and I was like, God, is this man for me? And God was like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I broke up with him, and I was like bereft. I mean, I was just like, it was really painful. And I was in Egypt. I was living in Egypt at the time, and I met a guy who had converted from Christianity to Islam. And he was just going in on my faith. He was like, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, we don't even have documentation of Jesus from this time and stuff. Like, and he just like eviscerated me, and I could not defend myself. And I was already like raw emotionally. And I just remember like walking out of the library, just like on fire. And it was the moment of like, the only moment of complete humility that I feel like I've ever had in my life. And I was like, Lord, I don't know what I believe. I was like, if you want me to be a Christian, I'll be a Christian. If you want me to be a Muslim, I'll be a Muslim. If you want me to be Buddhist or Jewish or Hindu, I will be Buddhist, Jewish, or Hindu. I will be an atheist if that's what you tell me. And I was like, but I need to know, and I need to know now. Like, and I like hopped onto the bus. I was like walking to the bus from the library. I hopped onto the bus, and my mother, who didn't text at this time, because this was back in 2009, she didn't text, but she sent me a text message, and she said, "Nothing else matters but sacrificial love." And like, that was it. That was like God answering, like seeing me and answering me in a way that was like unequivocal. And I was like, okay, that's it.